AP News, 8th of March 2023, Taiwan thinks Chinese ships cut the internet lines on the islands to prepare for war. In the past month, Chen Yu-lin, the owner of a bed and breakfast, had to tell his guests that he couldn't give them internet access. Others who lived on Matsu, an outlying island of Taiwan close to China, had trouble paying their power bills, seeing a doctor, or getting a package. Matsu's 14,000 people linked to the rest of the world through two underwater internet cables that lead to Taiwan's main island. The National Communications Commission said two Chinese ships were to blame for cutting the lines. They pointed to the island's phone service as evidence. It said that the first wire might have been cut by a Chinese fishing boat 50 kilometers, 31 miles, out to sea. NCC said that 6 days later, on February 8, a Chinese cargo ship cut the second. Taiwan's government didn't go as far as to say that Beijing did it on purpose, and there was no direct proof that Chinese ships were to blame. But the bombs that have been put in the strait make it a no-go zone. In the meantime, the islands had no choice but to use microwave radio transmission, a more mature technology, to connect to the internet. It means that sending a text could take hours. Calls would get cut off, and movies couldn't be watched. Many tourists would cancel their reservations if there was no internet. People's lives depend on the internet often, said Chen, who lives on Bigan, one of Matsu's main domestic islands. The loss of internet connections, which might not seem like a big deal, has enormous effects on national security. As the full-scale attack on Ukraine showed, one of Russia's main goals is to destroy the internet infrastructure. Some experts think that China may have cut the lines on purpose as a way to annoy the self-governed island, which it sees as part of its territory and plans to bring back together by force if necessary. China often sends airplanes and navy ships toward Taiwan to scare off the democratic government on the island. Since the war in Ukraine, there have been more worries about China invading Taiwan and how ready Taiwan is to fight back. The wires had been cut 27 times in the past 5 years, but Chunghwa Telecom didn't know which country the ships were from. Taiwan's Coast Guard chased the fishing boat that cut the first cable on February 2. It went back to Chinese waters, according to an official who knew about the event but was not allowed to talk about it publicly. Based on data from an automated identification system, which is like GPS in that it shows where a ship is, the authorities found two Chinese ships where the wires were cut. Su Zuyun, a defense expert at the Institute for National Defense and Security Research, said, "We can't say for sure that China didn't do this on purpose." He said this because a study showed that only China and Russia had the technology to do this. Taiwan needs to put more money into fixing the cables and keeping them safe. Internet cables, which can be anywhere from 0.79 inches to 1.18 inches wide, are protected by steel armor in shallow seas where they are more likely to hit ships. Even though the wires are insulated, ships and their anchors or fishing boats with steel nets can easily cut them. Even so, this level of breakage is very unusual for a cable, even in the shallow waters of the Taiwan Strait, said Jeff Houston, chief scientist at Asia Pacific Network Information Center. This nonprofit controls and distributes internet resources like IP addresses for the region. Chu Sai-chi, the owner of a coffee shop, said that without a reliable internet connection, it was hard for him to take his son to the doctor for a cold because they had to go to the hospital first to make an appointment. The food shop owner said that she had lost a lot of money in the last few weeks because she usually takes online orders. Customers would come to her stall expecting the food to be ready, but she hadn't even seen their texts. When people in Matsu ran into unusual problems, they devised various ways to get their lives in order. One couple planned to handle the coming busy season by having one person stay in Taiwan to use their ticket system and send text messages to the other person with the information. Wife Lin Zhen expanded her off-season trip to Taiwan when she heard that the internet at home wasn't working. Later this week, she will go back to Matsu. Some people went to the other side of the island to buy SIM cards from Chinese telecoms. However, these cards only work well in places close to the Chinese coast, which is only 10 kilometers, 6.21 miles, away at its nearest point. Others, like Cao Liu, the owner of a bed and breakfast, would go to the office of Chunghwa Telecom to use a Wi-Fi hotspot the company had set up for locals to use. "I was going to work at Chunghwa Telecom," Cao joked. Chunghwa had set up microwave communication as a backup for those who lived there. The relay sends the signals about 200 kilometers, 124 miles, to Matsu from Yangmingshan, a mountain near Taiwan's Taipei. residents say that speeds have been much faster since Sunday. Wang Chengming, the head of Linqiang County, which is what the Matsu Islands are officially called, said that he and the lawmaker from Matsu went to Taipei soon after the internet went down to ask for help. They were told they would be prioritized in any plans to back up the internet. The head of the ministry, Audrey Tang, told the Washington Post last fall that Taiwan's Ministry of Digital Affairs put out a public call for bids from low Earth orbit satellite companies to provide internet as a backup plan after seeing Russia's cyber attacks during the invasion of Ukraine. Still, the program hasn't moved forward because a law in Taiwan says that a local shareholder must own at least 51% of each provider. When asked how backup plans were coming, a digital ministry spokeswoman told people to ask the National Communications Commission. NCC said it would put in a system to monitor the undersea lines and use microwave transmission as a backup. Jonathan Brewer, a New Zealander who works as a telecommunications consultant all over Asia and the Pacific, said that before many Pacific Island countries started using internet cables, they used satellites as a backup. Some of them still do. Cost is another thing to think about. Repairing the lines will cost a lot of money. Just the work done by the ships is believed to cost $30 million in new Taiwan dollars, $1 million. Wen Li, head of the Democratic Progressive Party branch in Matsu, said that the Chinese boats that broke the cables should be held responsible and must pay for the expensive repairs. Wang, the head of Linqiang County, said he had told a China Mobile employee about the cables during a recent trip to China. They said they would send someone to help. But to get paid, he said, there must be demanding proof of who did it. A faxed request for information from the Taiwan Affairs Office in China was unanswered. The only thing people can do right now is wait. Because only a few ships can do the job, the earliest ships that can lay cables can come on April 20th. There are some good things about not having internet for a month. The bed and breakfast owner, Chen Yu-lin, has felt calmer. The first week was hard, but Chen got used to it quickly. From a life standpoint, I think it's a lot better because you don't get as many calls, he said, adding that he was spending more time with his son, who usually plays games online. The same happened at a web cafe where soldiers played games off-duty. Our relationships have become a little bit closer, said a man who only gave his first name, Samuel. Because everyone usually stays to themselves on the internet, but now we're more connected.